So good morning, everyone. My name is Paula, and also your moderator for today. I'm very pleased to join this panel with a topic which I'm very passionate about as well, the power of green finance and also technologies and act for a sustainable future. I'm very happy to be here with 6 panelists. Let me introduce them. First, we have Osman Faiz, the CIO and COO of AMTD Group, who also had more than 25 years of incumbent bank experience, particularly in the operations and the technology sectors. Also, Osman have a deep expertise in the wholesale banking domain. And in his capacity with AMTD Group, he's looking to expand the AM digital footprint globally and also across the Asia region. So welcome, Osman. Next up, we also have Professor Annie Koh. Prof. Koh is Vice President for Business Development at the V3 Group, Professor of Family Entrepreneurship. Annie is also a Professor of Finance at the Singapore Management University. She's the Academic Director for 2 institutes, the Business Families Institute, as well as the International Trading Institute. Prof. Annie Koh is also a member of the World Economic Forum Global Future Council on the new agenda for work, wages, and job creation. Welcome, Prof. Koh. And we also have Esther An. Esther is a Chief Sustainability Officer of CDL. She also sits on the board of GRI, World Green Building Council, Corporate Advisory Board. Esther is an active advocate for green building and sustainability for over 20 years. She led the CDL's effort in issuing the first green bond by a Singapore company in 2017. Esther is also a forerunner in embracing UN SDGs. It was also conferred the 2018 SDG Pioneer for Green Infrastructure and a Low Carbon Economy by the UN Global Compact. Welcome, Esther. And we also have Rahul Banerjee, the founder and CEO of BondEvalue Private Limited. So welcome, Rahul. And last but not least, we have Vakil, CEO and co-founder of GlobalLinker, which is also an SME business networking platform solution, co-branded by many leading corporates, governments, and trade bodies. Samir has been very passionately looking into how to help and connect and support SMEs to digitize and also to connect and offer them collaborative economies and efficiencies. And also with focus on creating deeper and more meaningful SME relationships. So welcome, Samir. I think COVID-19 has been in the forefront of most government and societies, but also another very important and relevant issue persists, which is climate change. So potential solution does exist in the forms of renewable energy, but how do we grow more awareness in this space and also need to advance in the green finance area? I think recently we have been hearing from MAS about the responsible financing and also promote, the responsible financing in this particular area. So I would like to open up this first question to Osman and also welcome the rest of the panelists to chip in. So how do you read the Singapore government's green finance grant scheme? And to what extent do you think this will push forward the green agenda in Singapore and also in the region? And also the timing, why is it now? So your read, please.
Thank you, Paula, and good afternoon, everybody. So first is how do we read this government green finance grant scheme? I would say it's a good start with the government taking the lead to defray some of the cost incurred by corporates and to validate green and sustainability credentials of loans. And also developing the framework and obtaining external reviews and impact reporting. There are also downside to address this. Green bonds usually and loans are actually not cheap. Money is fungible, which is susceptible to greenwashing, which we call, and comprehensive reporting can be exceedingly time-consuming and pricey. And third, I would say currently the program has a 3-year coverage. Its sustainability is dependent on future fiscal budget. So those are, I would say, the downside. Now, to your question, to what extent do we think that this will push forward the green agenda? There are multi-pronged approach, I would say, in driving the green agenda, which I believe will bring us to the next chapter of green excellence. We have the Singa Green Center, as you perhaps know, that we intended to lead and support Singapore and other ASEAN cities to build a sustainable future and be a leading center for green finance. The Singa Green Center of Excellence will also conduct research and train professionals to become talents in green finance. We have government leading support in sustainability projects, and now we have the Green Finance Grant Scheme to support sustainability-linked loans as companies in Asia are relying more on bank loans. And to answer the last question, I guess, and why now, I think we all know COVID-19 pandemic has reinforced the importance of sustainability as it has raised awareness of the importance of taking timely action to mitigate some of the global challenges. Second, I would say the Asia Pacific region needs investment of almost 1.5 trillion US dollar, close to 2 trillion Singapore dollar a year to achieve the United Nations Sustainability Development Goal by 2030.
I would like to open the next question to Esther, right? Coming back to the corporates and the private sectors. So how do you think, and also what kind of approach should the businesses, particularly the private sector, should be taking to engage their key stakeholders to mitigate the environmental risk and also to support the transitions towards a low carbon and sustainable future? Your views, please.
Thank you for having me. And I still remember in January, we started the whole year with all gear up for a decade of, urgent climate action. But after Chinese New Year, everything has actually changed. The priority seems to be, really focused on how to contain the virus and, the global pandemic. But now we are almost the end of the year. This whole year, while we are fighting, the whole world is fighting, to contain the global pandemic. I don't think, the world has lost sight of, fighting climate change. And I would say that, in fact, also accelerated the importance of sustainability practices, integration, and also climate action as well, because we all have learned that business resilience is very important. And the health of planet is actually closely linked to the health of people, community, and the economy. So all these are all intertwined together, and the whole ecosystem has their fair share of role to play. Apart from the global, NGO to push for Paris agreements and SDG, and political leadership is also very, very important on the national level. And of course, businesses have a very major role to play with our interface with the larger value chain and also downstream with consumers and all that. I would say that everyone really can have a step up this year, and there is actually a wonderful convergence of the will and the commitment, whether it is the political leadership or business leaders and even individual. And we all heard about, the rise of stakeholder capitalism, investor activism, and the corporate activism, and of course consumers. All these are really key drivers. All these opting together are really, very powerful engine to propel, the climate action and also to promote the health, to protect, the health of the planet, the people, and the business agenda. For CDL, we are very happy that we actually started in 1995 with our ethos of conserving as we construct. At that time, of course, we didn't have the crystal ball about global warming and all that. But what we feel is it is the right thing to do, and because building and construction sector account for 39% of greenhouse gas emission. And people in general, on average, spend about 90% indoor. So even you are not in the real estate sector, you can make a difference, with the building performance, how you use it, how to conserve the energy and all that has a big, impact as well to the whole built environment and the whole planet, at large. So I can share a little bit more later on. And but I think one thing very important linking to today's topic is we believe in innovation, technology, solution. Without that, you can't really green the world or towards, to excel in the race, to net zero. But all these don't come cheap. So you need financing, you need funding. So green financing, green bond, all these are really a very strong alternative funding for us to accelerate our green building movement. And we were very glad that we started the ball rolling in Singapore. In April 2017, we rolled out the first green bond in Singapore, and we continue to tap the sustainable finance. Last year, we launched another 500 million green loan to support our new development. And in September, we actually launched a very innovative vehicle. We call it SDG Innovation Loan. So connecting innovation to serve SDG, not just about making money, but also serving the bigger good of sustainable development.
And I think you touch on a very important point, particularly in terms of technologies, right? And I think a lot of this is empowered and is supported by the technology advancement. So I would like to open up the next question maybe to Samir. Right. I think in the space, and I know you have been passionately using technology to connect SME communities and to bring them the value add and establish a meaningful, deeper relationship. So how do you think technology can help further on this particular agenda? And also we noticed that, GlobalLinker is also part of the Single Green Tech Center, which was established recently. So what kind of tools and metrics can be used to monitor and assess the exposures to environmental risk and also help to drive the sustainability agenda further?
Thank you, Paula. First of all, a great discussion. And I think both Osman and Esther have touched on some great points over there. I'll look on building on some of those as well as introducing a couple new. Firstly, I'd like to broad base the term technology and maybe add digital to technology, because that's in some sense an offshoot, and on the other side it really helps democratize communication as well as create greater reach and access. And I think it's really something that can help in this agenda that we are discussing in a very big way. So when you look at technology and digital in particular, given the widespread humanity that we are talking about, the number of nations we are talking about, the number of individuals that we talk about, in some ways the world is shrinking, becoming smaller, and that's largely due to the access technology provides, and digitization, especially with devices getting smaller and more powerful, in some ways allow us to sort of connect much better. So that leads to a couple of points, and you talked even in your introduction to the subject that it's extremely important first and foremost to create awareness, and there is no better way of creating awareness at a mass scale than leveraging technology in a communication sense, but more importantly also in demonstrating the value of what people have been able to achieve. Because I think the more use cases we create of organizations, individuals, businesses, governments being able to run programs successfully, that needs to be disseminated to many more people. And I think best practice exchange is the order of the day. And especially even during COVID, which is really the time we find ourselves in, what we found is that a lot of people have started communicating more effectively with each other and leveraging solutions that others have been able to come up with, because we were almost at the same level when we all began. Nobody had history on how to handle COVID and the situation thereafter. So keeping that in mind, I think technology and digital is going to play a very big part in, number one, creating awareness. Secondly, taking success stories and being able to disseminate them to more folks across the world. And the third most important part, which is really what technology and digital allow us to do, is to be able to collaborate. So I think and collaborate in a way where geography is no more a restriction. In fact, it was very nicely said that with technology and digital, the way it's going, geography has become history. So it's really become something of the past. Today, we can collaborate across geographies, across business lines, across different functions much more easily. And I think the COVID period has if anything, accelerated that. So I believe that digital and technology in a very, very big way are going to become the channels and the pipes through which information will reach much faster. Success stories will be transferred, will be replicated much faster. Tools can be created which will help, whether in the measure part, the metrics that you talked about, or in terms of progress that we are making or ways for us to go further. All of that can be tracked much better, and we just become one single community rather than each one in isolation trying to solve the issue or address the issues relating to the subject at hand. So those are really the ways that I see it. we're very excited about being part of the Singer, Green Tech Center. And what we're really seeing is the ability to spread the solution from our side, definitely include more SMEs in the process, and it will work its way up as well. So very excited about that and the results we can achieve over there.
Yeah, thanks very much, Samir, for your sharing. And I do agree, right? Technology, when it comes together to enable people and to collaborate, that creates, exponential effect in terms of the amount of efforts we can tap on, and also be able to accelerate our agenda even further. Now, I think on that aspect, I would like to also open up, right, in terms of building upon the human capital, and also be able to look at, from a talent perspective. I know, Annie, you have been also passionately driving a lot of this agenda in this particular space. So can you also share with us, in terms of, we have been hearing about government talks about jobs of the future, and in that regard, there's green jobs. So can you help us in the financial sector to reimagine what might be some of these new jobs looking like? Suggestion for the talents, right, who are still studying in universities, or some of them who are actually thinking about reskilling and upskilling themselves. What kind of skills and knowledge they should equip themselves with, and also be ready for such kind of green jobs?
This is an amazing panel, because I was just listening to all the different, vision, and I call this the AAA panel. All right, and why AAA? Yes, because bonds need to be AAA. Rahul will remind us about that later. But AAA, because I think everyone is now having the same ambition and aspiration. So, for the first time globally, the COVID pandemic has actually accelerated and make us all aware that climate change is not just for the NGOs, and it's not just for the youthful idealists, but we are all impacted. So for the first time, there is this common ambition and aspiration to do business and to do it well. And good business, all right, requires you to think about the future. The second A, which I'm hearing across all of you, is alignment. I think for the first time too, we are seeing so much government effort pushing the envelope, and the alignment from the MAS coming up with the green grants to help every company from big to small transform. Because as Esther pointed out just now, to go green, it requires investments. And Osman mentioned that it is actually a 3-year loan because it takes time to bear fruits. So, we cannot have magic appearing, but we want to encourage the direction of change. So the alignment at government level, at private sector level, at NGO level, we are all suddenly aligned. My final A is the one that is going to be the hardest, and we require people like our Green Tech Center, and alignment cannot happen if there is no action. So the final A is action-oriented. We need to incentivize people. We need to incentivize projects. So your wonderful question, Paula, is the future jobs will have to be what? Interdisciplinary. No one student can come up with great solutions because it requires technology. Samir says we currently have lots of great tech solutions, but it's not just about tech. It's about the human side, and it's about measurements. It's about knowing the metrics. It's about having consultants, project people who can come in and say, how do I do that whole project to make sure that it's green? And it cannot come about just from an engineer, architect, construction. It's got to have everybody in the ecosystem, just looking at the construction of built environment space. So interdisciplinary means we have to collaborate. No monopoly on ideas. So therefore, to me, this is music to my ears, because SMU has a sustainability major, and all our students across, the different disciplines would have to understand the meaning of what it takes to build sustainable built environment, waste management, future mobility, anything. The verticals will always be there, but sustainability and cross-border, it's horizontal. So when you ask about the skills and jobs of the future, it simply means that the awareness is not enough. You have to work with the industry and turn it into a sustainable project. And I think the way forward, the students will all love to work with companies like CDL, work with companies, all right, like Singer and all of us, because we can actually implement projects and turn aspiration, alignment into action. See, my AAA works.
Yeah, thanks, Annie, for summarizing it so well. I mean, AAA, I think, when it comes to all kinds of investment decisions, having a AAA rating will always help, right? But I think I would like to also kind of divert this into a different perspective. And I think, Annie, you also touched upon in terms of investment. And I know a lot of the corporates, or when we look at some of these green bonds, right? So I think, Rahul, in your context, and I know you're an expert in this particular area. So when it comes to investment decision, what would be the breaking point to kind of adopt the green finance strategies? And also, like when we look at investing into entities that are integrating these ESG principles, like the environmental, social, and corporate governance elements. So what are the key consideration and also that will help us to kind of enable some of this decisioning to be happening and supporting to the agenda?
And I think, as Professor Annie said, AAA is the way to go. I think every investor and every issuer in the world wants to contribute to ESG, right? Wants to invest in green, wants to issue green. What we have seen this year is that there's been a huge amount of new issuance relating to ESG, and finally it's becoming more mainstream. ESG has been around for quite a few years, and Esther's company was a pioneer in issuing green bonds. So that inherent desire is there, but it comes at a cost. And I think what Osman said is one side of the coin, called greenwashing. And for those who don't know, greenwashing is basically you say this is a green bond or ESG without really meaning it. And actually, before I go to the consequence, let me explain, or not explain, give an example. I was reading a bond indenture. An indenture of a bond is the legal contract of a green bond, which says, look, we will do green, but we will not audit. We will not follow ICMA principles, and we will not get ourselves audited in any way. But it's still called a green bond. Now, as a consequence, we see that greenium. What is greenium? The premium that an issuer gets for issuing a green bond is roughly zero. So a green versus, let's say, a non-green is called brown. They trade at roughly the same price. BondEvalue, we just released a report, and we saw that statistically there was no greenium. We did find about 3 to 5 basis points exist, but in the bond market, 3 to 5 basis points is really nothing. So the interesting thing happened today, without naming any names. One large European fund told a large EM bank that they will sell their green bonds, kick them out of the index if they lend to a polluting project. So you are now seeing there was a carrot. We said, look, carrot is not that nice, but we were all going. But now suddenly you see a stick. People say, if not green, I will not buy your paper. And I think that trend, which will be reinforced using technologies like blockchain-based bond indentures, and these green bonds will become greener and browner will become blacker. And that is where, people will suddenly say that if I don't do green, CFOs will come and say, then our company is not sustainable. So we are at the beginning of an intensifying, revolution and trend. And I'm so glad that the capital markets are being a force for good. And this year's FinTech Festival is all about green. And I think a lot of useful discussion will happen which will also lead to useful results. So very exciting times ahead.
Not only are you attracting the right investors, you will also need to attract the right human capital. And when we do like broad surveys on all the graduates from the different universities, many of the students actually say they really want to join companies that have good intentions and purpose. And for many of them, being a sustainable company, not just in words, but in the things that they do in community, in social, in all the ESG principles, that is number one in their decision to join a company. So you're not only attracting financial capital, you're attracting human capital. So, that is the way forward. The kids are actually voting with their feet, right? And sending out the signals to everyone who are their future employers that they need to do it right and not just do whitewashing or greenwashing or whatever washing. They need to see the real metrics and the indicators for sustainable business.
Thanks very much, Annie, for adding on that very important perspective. I think a lot of this, back to your 3A point, right, in terms of aspirations, alignment, and also in terms of, driving action oriented. I think the kind of value aspect in terms of what we all believe in, and particularly in the Singapore's context, I think, I know the government has been promoting a lot of this from a very young age. I do have a 10-year-old daughter in the local primary school, and she actually nags me every day, right, in terms of how should I be protecting this world, which is eventually is going to be theirs. I think you're absolutely right, in terms of the values. The next generation, they are kind of really believing in this, and they want to see more actions in this particular space. And I think what we need to do, particularly in the financial sector, is how do we actually look at from a financial sector, how some of these actions can happen a lot faster, and also what actually needs to change. So I would like to actually open up the next question, right? And I think when we're talking about banks and FIs, right, because they have a lot of power in the capital market that can actually influence a lot of sectors, right, in terms of the movement. So what kind of industrial movement and also what kind of management practice that has been adopted and seen as effective in a particular industry, like for example, in terms of risk guidelines or in terms of management guidelines for green finance? Maybe I think more towards Osman and Rahul in your context. What are the kind of things that is being done in the industry in terms of development, and what do you see as still gaps in the industry right now?
I think from a industrial movement, if you look at the green finance framework will set the next milestone for various industries who are embarking in green initiatives like climate change, resource savings, management, environment protection, or ecosystem protection and recovery, water conservation, natural disaster prevention. So these are the green finance framework that will set the next milestone. In terms of risk management, if you look at the governance on environmental considerations into their strategies, business plans and product offerings, as well as maintain effective oversight of the management of environmental risk. The second would be the risk management policies and processes to assess, monitor, and manage environmental risk. Many organizations today have actually adopted that traditionally they could finance carbon emission or environment pollutant plastic production. Those kind of standards are in the credit assessment now in the organizations that they have established that they won't be able to support or provide facilities. The third important and very key is corporate disclosure of their environmental risk, so that it enhances the market discipline by investors. So I think those three things in the risk management practices, I would say the governance of environmental considerations, the risk management policies and process, and the corporate disclosure. I would say that major gaps, large and influential multinationals with their resources maybe at the forefront to adopt environmental, social, and corporate governance standards, which they have adopted. In Singapore, like for an example, AAA, Professor Annie said, ESG rating is given to Keppel. On the other hand, there is a large section of SMEs who are the backbone of the economy in a way, contributes 48% of its GDP for Singapore and almost employs 65% of its workforce. They need help from the government and FIs to embark on this journey. So I think that's where I would say the gaps are, and rightly so that we are getting some wholesale digital bank licenses the regulators are going to announce, and I think that's pretty much geared towards helping them digitize, automate, and get the operational efficiency and also be environment friendly. On the side, I think I just wanted to touch on that, MAS June 2020 issued a consultation paper, which is guidelines on environmental management for banks, insurers, and asset managers. So that was done to enhance financial institutions' resilience to environmental risk, as well as strengthen the financial sector's role in supporting the transition to environmentally sustainable economy, as well as supporting the region. And part of that was actually the Green Finance Action Plan, which talks about governance, risk management, and disclosure. So those were very much embedded even in Singapore Monetary Authority, who has established those action plan, which has a 4 thrust area: strengthen the financial sector resilience to environmental risk, and then develop green financing, financial solutions, market sustainable economy. And I would say harness technology to enable trusted and efficient finance flows. And obviously, last but not the least, build knowledge and capabilities, which Professor Annie mentioned, in sustainable finance. So I think to summarize, instead of AAA, I would say 5G.
Okay. like the telco. Yeah.
It's green finance, green tech, green talent, green city, and 5G itself. That makes the 5G.
No, I actually want to jump in here, and I want to go back to Esther, actually, Paula. Because Esther, when nobody was championing it in 1995, that's about 25 years ago, what incentivizes you? I know that CDL is listed, but even if you didn't go green, you will do very well. What motivated the whole company and the vision of the shareholders to say this is something that we want to invest in, even as early as 25 years ago?
It was really a combination of what we feel that we can do better, because construction industry, whether it is in Hong Kong or Singapore during that era, you won't imagine a construction site to be very clean, to free of dirty water and all that, and the scaffolding and safety and all that. So during that time, my late mentor, Mr. Kwat Ling Chu, was the one who was really a visionary leader. And so we actually confront this. Instead of damaging the environment, before we construct, we actually establish the ethos of conserving as we construct. Conserve the environment, conserve the community and resources and the people. So this has been really guiding us through all these years. And I would like to also share, how we actually, gone into, green financing. And I would say that it is also an extension of what we believe in. How do we design, build, and manage, green building? Because a green built environment is very important, to support a healthy and green, community. So at that time, honestly, in 2016, there was no, SOP for me to follow. So I actually met 7 banks, including foreign banks, local banks, and all that. Really learn by doing and doing by learning. So what we feel is that yes, we could actually do it, and then and while it was not really have a very good, strong price benefits, but it was not higher. It was not more expensive. Yes, the assurance process, setting up the framework, and all that are very, very robust. And what we adopt is actually the global standard, the Green Bond Principle, which we can withstand, any question. And I would say from my own experience, I find it very hard for greenwashing because it is so open and it requires us for a framework, a second party, a third party audit, and also sends to, Climate Bond Initiative to stamp it. So it is everything. It is posted online, our framework, and also an annual report to report whether we are aligned with what we set, the goals. And so I thought it was a very open process, very transparent. And actually, when we launched it, within a day, it was all taken up. And this also shows that, with good ESG track record, investors do, have faith in you. Even, it is something very new, a new vehicle. And for green loans and all that, we work very closely with our banks. And again, with our good ESG rating and also, our credit rating, we enjoy very, favorable rate. And then the SDG innovation loan, it comes with a discount. If we can come up with a good innovation that can benefit the whole industry. So it is still work in progress. And it is a very exciting time. Money talks. You need financing to support your ambitious goal towards, a low carbon future.
I think if I take Esther's point forward, ultimately, does it cost money to be environmentally friendly, right? Most of us are bankers here, right? It does. And today what we have capital markets, and on the other side, investors who say, look, make the world a better place and pay me a slightly less interest. And I think the lead is being done by regulators and government bodies to jumpstart this process. But I feel that COVID-19 has perhaps taught us that we all actually live in this planet and we have to take care of that. So that is the turning point. As we look back, we'll see that COVID-19 changed people's belief as to when is the right time to go green.
I think just to add, completely agree with Professor Annie and Rahul. The whole climate crisis is the existential challenge of our time. And I think this COVID, never before have the effect of climate change been more keenly felt. If you look at the soaring temperature, extreme weather events, rising sea level. So how do we deal with this climate change will define our future. And the Paris Agreement calls for a concerted effort to limit global temperature rise by reducing emission of greenhouse gases. And to your surprise, I guess you would know that Asia accounts for about half of global greenhouse gas emission. So to move the needle on global emission, Asia must move. And Singapore has a much at stake in global efforts to mitigate climate risk. So I think the whole environment of COVID that has in one way stifled us, but in many ways have created a fast track like digital adoption. I think the awareness on this has gone tremendously up. And to support you, Paula, my daughter has introduced, who is 16 years old, that you can't have plastic straw. So you see, so I'm very hopeful and positive that things are heading in the right direction.
Well, if I can just build on some of the earlier points that have been made, I think when it comes to financing and trying to support green financing, it's going to be extremely important for there to be more transparency. We heard a lot about greenwashing, whitewashing, etc. And transparency can really come from more digitization, whether it's of the supply chain elements, etc. And as that information comes in the open, organizations, whether they are small businesses, like Osman correctly said, very hard to be able to track and manage that part, or even enterprise for that matter and others. And access to finance then starts getting linked to transparent data that's available. Now what you need really is benchmarks. And we heard AAA, we heard 5G, but I would really say that Digitization lends to transparency, and transparency lends itself to greater encouragement of green, whether through financing solution, concessions, fiscal benefits, etc. All of that can flow through. So here is my suggestion. Number one, I think the creation of a fairly standard digitization index, and equally creation of a green index, that every individual, every corporation, every small business enterprise, even government can talk about their commitment, their actual steps they have taken towards that. And the creation of these two indices, once they are fungible in a sense that they are common across and the same standards are being applied, I think will lead to greater transparency as well as greater awareness of where people stand. And then whether it's financing, whether it's benefits, whether it's recognition, all of that can flow in the right direction. And I would entirely agree as one thought, which is what Annie talked a lot about. I talked about it in maybe a little subtle sense, which is about collaboration. So the more transparency, the more collaboration that you have, interdisciplinary, intergeography, etc., I think that's what will lend us in the direction we need to go. So those are just a couple of thoughts.
Yeah, I think thanks to everyone for chiming in the last question. And I have to say that I think in terms of AAA, in terms of 5G, in terms of collaboration, and also in terms of technology, being able to make things more transparent and also be able to also give us the support in terms of being able to track and to kind of validate, whether there's to prevent certain things like greenwashing. I think we are very hopeful that this is just a starting point for also Singapore, and also I think Asia. I think is particularly important for us in this particular agenda, because I think Asia, in terms of sustainability, there has a long way to go, right? I think Singapore, being the financial center, will also have a very big role to play, and we have seen some great success. I think Esther has also mentioned that even as long as 25 years ago, there was no promotion of such agenda. A lot of things is already happening, and it's actually working, right? And also promoting this agenda. So I think we're very hopeful as things is coming to an end in December. I think what is the one last thing I just want every panelist to share, like in your personal space? It doesn't have to be green financing, such a big topic, but at your individual level, what are you doing, if you can just share, like to slow down the climate change? Maybe start with Annie.
Consume less. All right, I think thoughtful consumption. I don't know if that will help the GDP, but I'm sure. All right, I'm sure there's a lot more we could share, and the circular economy. So when you teach economics, you always think about circular flow of income. But I think the circular economy and the great vision of sharing, I think that will power a lot of other things that we do, even at the individual level.
Great.
On that one, for me, it's going to be conserve, communicate, and collaborate. I think it's going to be more about that. So,
see, the 4 C's: consumption, conserve.
Well, just build on it. I think we are already reaching the point, the tipping point, that there's no U-turn even after COVID, and I think there's no one party can really change the world alone. So whether you're individual, business, or regulators, everybody can make a difference for a more sustainable future for our future generations.
I think for me, we started actually using environmental and eco-friendly appliances, which has a Energy Star level endorsement. So that's the step we have taken.
On our part, I run the world's first fractional bond exchange, and what I'm doing is allowing people, the individual on the street who does not have $200,000 to buy a green bond, to be able to buy green bonds in $1,000 slices.
That's called sharing, all right? They are allowing for the sharing of that asset across individuals.
Because that man on the street, he also cares about the environment.
Yeah.
He wants to vote with his wallet. He did not have the means. And we are now giving him the means to vote.
Yeah, I think for myself, it's about how do we bring more visibility of people who are actually doing a lot of things in this space, and create more awareness in the community, and also with the different talents and also the different influential groups. I think I'm also wearing green today, right? But thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much for this exciting and very interesting topic. And also thank you very much, panelists, for your active participation. I'll see you soon.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye.